Hey tootRN fam, here's a question that came up a few times this week with some students that I've been working with, and so I wanted to share it with everybody here. Now, this question, just like every question that we have, right? So just like every NCLEX question challenges you to do, is to put yourself in a position where you really are thinking in the way of outcomes, being very outcome oriented. So truly, in order to be the best critical thinker that you can be, you have to always come from a position of thinking about outcomes. So using your intuition, being predictive in that way, and that's just taking the information that the question's giving you and being able to put that a step further and a step further and a step further to see what the end result would be. So let's look at this one together. So it reads, a client is brought to the emergency department after sustaining smoke inhalation. Humidified oxygen is administered to the client by way of face mask, and arterial blood gases are measured. ABG analysis indicates arterial oxygenation of less than 60 millimeters per mercury. Based on the ABG result, the nurse prepares to, option A says continue monitoring the client, option B, increase the amount of humidified oxygen, option C, continue administering humidified oxygen, and option D, assist in intubating the client and beginning mechanical ventilation. So the first thing, right, what our tootRN 3-step teaches us is that we have to identify the ask, and we can find that here. It's asking, the nurse prepares to, right, which just means, what do you do? The question's asking you, what do you do? So we want to take all the data the question's giving us. That's our next step, so we can find our problem. So we know this client was brought to the ED, they had a smoke inhalation injury, they're getting humidified oxygen by face mask. You look at their ABGs and their PaO2 is less than 60. So we know that's really low, right? So they're showing signs of hypoxemia. I mean, that's what our ABGs are telling us. So the oxygen is really low in this patient. So thinking about outcomes, right? Being outcome oriented and really putting together what we know and what we think so we can find a solution for this patient is taking all that information and thinking about it for a second. So if they had smoke inhalation injury, they're getting oxygen by face mask, but their PaO2 is super low, that means this oxygen is not working. And when we think about, okay, well, how do we figure this out for the patient? How do we fix this for the patient? We have this descriptor here. This patient experiences smoke inhalation injury, and we know what that can do to the airways, right? That can cause airway swelling, airway edema, and then ultimately the patient can lose their airway. And of course, anything that you're giving them by face mask, that's not going to make a difference, right? Because it's just not going to move down to the lower airways. So we recognize this oxygen's not doing anything for this patient. We recognize we have to fix this issue immediately. And we recognize that based off the data that we have in the question, that smoke inhalation, that an outcome of that is those airways will become edematous. They will become swollen and inflamed, and you can lose your airway as a result. So our solution, which is our last step, looking at these answer options, we want to find what answer option is going to solve this problem, right? What answer option is going to help this patient, is going to address this oxygenation issue that we have, and keeping in mind that they've got this airway problem happening. So continuing to monitor the client, well, you're not doing anything, which means you're not going to change this number, and you haven't done anything for the client's need. Increase the amount of humidified oxygen. Okay, that would be great, right? We could give them more oxygen. However, they're getting oxygen by face mask, and we know that that's not doing anything for the problem and nothing for the patient because of that smoke inhalation that they have. You can increase it all you want, but it's not going to move anywhere because we know that that airway is compromised. So that's not going to do the trick. Continue administering humidified oxygen. So this is a copycat of A. It means just keep doing what you're doing, which is the same outcome that option A would give you. Just keep doing what you're doing. And doing what we're doing right now isn't doing anything for the client or their problem. But D says assist in intubating the client and beginning mechanical ventilation. So yeah, we definitely want to do that because the oxygen that we're giving them via face mask is not doing anything for the patient. If we're not able to move that air to the lower airways because of that airway edema that happens secondary to smoke inhalation, then no matter what intervention we do by face mask, it's not going to work. We have to intubate the client and mechanically ventilate them. That's directly going to solve this oxygenation issue, and that is directly going to address the fact that we have an airway compromise and we need to put in this artificial airway to ventilate them properly. So the correct answer here is D.